there were about 2 days prior to the incident, there was an inmate who assaulted an officer, having nothing to do with my client. So what he tells me, and what I've heard from other people as well who've been in prison, is that when something like that happens, the officers will select somebody to as an example to the population, that if any one of you do something like this, then this is what's going to happen to you. So he claims that he was a victim of that type of thought process, and they actually set him up to come out and have this to be beaten. And it's not an isolated story. There are other complaints filed in federal court right now with similar claims um, uh, from inmates who've been treated like this
in New Jersey.
In New Jersey, in New Jersey. But you're never going to hear about it because the powers that be, the society at large, think that these men deserve it, or if they don't deserve it, they don't have a right to complain about it because they're second-class citizens and they're quote unquote criminals. And the thing about it is, I don't know if they treat white inmates like that. I have no idea. But the complaints that I've seen thus far involve Black inmates. So it's not an isolated incident, and it's all the same type of disregard for us as a people and the rights that are supposed to be afforded to us by the Constitution of the United States and the state of New Jersey. These corrections officers decided that they had the right or the authority to beat this man like this, and there's no accountability. None of those officers were disciplined. Half of them, most of them still employed. Some of them were promoted. And they're fighting tooth and nail for something that's on the videotape.
Let's embark on the Arc Republic to hear current news that's published. More than gossip and chatter, covering current affairs that matter. We talk issues with professional views, all keeping you in queue. We wanted a higher vibe for these days and times, to free the voices and minds, reporting the sign of the times, so all can build, let's shine, yeah.
Greetings, what up, wherever you are in the universe. My name is Kaya Niambi Shivers, and welcome to Arc Republic News. We are back, and we are back with a case that has been brewing in New Jersey, another case, I should say, that has been brewing in New Jersey, and we are welcoming back attorney Cynthia Hardaway, who is representing a family or a young man. How are you doing, attorney Hardaway?
I'm good. How are you?
Fine. Could you let our listeners know who you are and the type of work that you do?
Okay. My name is Cynthia Hardaway. I'm an attorney, and I primarily do civil rights cases now. And the case that we're going to speak about, one of them is a situation that started out as a criminal case. I have a background in criminal defense as well. I just don't do it anymore. However, I did pick up this particular case because I thought it was a case that was important to be handled in the proper manner. So that's the Rodwell Spivey brothers case. And I know you wanted an update, so I don't know if you want me to start now or...
Yeah, so let's talk about that. The time that we did speak was about the Rodwell and Spivey brothers case, as you said it was, and they are four brothers who were arrested during the pandemic, and they were facing a lot of time, and you represented one of the brothers, and I wanted to know what is the status, and the brother that you represented was the only one incarcerated, and so I wanted to know what is the status of the brother and the brothers. Where are we with that case?
Well, with respect to the brother, Justin Rodwell, who I represent, he was released. And that was, he spent over a year incarcerated in the Essex County Jail. And then after all of that time, the Essex County Prosecutor's Office agreed to allow him to be released. Because the way the process works, they're the office that has to request to detain the defendant. And if the request is granted by the judge, he has to sit there until such time that we could figure out a way to move for release, or if the prosecutor's office agrees. So in this case, after a year and some change passed, the prosecutor's office just agreed to release him.
And he is waiting for trial still.
He is waiting along with his brothers now as of I guess it was in June of 2022. Everybody's released. Now, since that time, we had a trial date scheduled for October 3rd. But again, the Essex County Prosecutor's Office decided that they wanted to remand the case down to Essex County Remand Court. And what that effectively means is that there are no more felony charges that we have to deal with. They're misdemeanors or disorderly persons charges, which clearly do not carry the same type of prison time. There is no prospect for prison in Essex County Remand Court. So once again, the Essex County Prosecutor's Office just made the decision. Now we're downgraded. They didn't dismiss the case. We're in Essex County Remand Court with disorderly persons offenses, and we have to deal with that. So there's good news and there's bad news with respect to this case.
So October 3rd is the next date, or are they?
There is no trial. No, before we got to the trial date, the prosecutor's office made the decision to downgrade the charges. So now we're just waiting for a notice from a special remand court to appear. And those for the most part, those appearances are they're remote. There's really no in-person appearances. It's equivalent to, say, for instance, Newark Municipal Court or Irvington Municipal Court, but it just happens to be in Essex County.
Okay.
Down at the courthouse.
Okay, so all right. So it's just the judge making the decision.
Now it's just the judge making the decision. We could still have a trial, but when they remand the cases down to remand court, you lose the jury. So instead of this case being tried in front of a jury of their peers, there's going to be a judge who's going to make the decision.
Okay, and that's the sticky part.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Okay. Yes. Do you think, from your perspective, was perhaps in you can't say what their perspective is, but did you feel, or do you see that perhaps they really didn't have a case for a felony and that they would more so likely have a conviction if in remanding the case?
Well, just based on my experience, because I'm not privy to these discussions that the prosecutors have, but typically if a case is downgraded, that means that the prosecutor's office perceives some type of weakness with their case. That's just from my experience, having done this, over 25 years. That's usually what happens. So that's a good thing that the office recognizes that this is not the type of case that we should be pursuing in superior court and high court, where there are felony charges, and if convicted, the brothers could be facing several years in prison. So that, to me, is an acknowledgement to remand it that this is not the type of case that we think we should move forward on. I would have wanted, and I think we deserved, an outright dismissal. However, that is something that's very rare, and remand court is in my view meant to capture those cases that the prosecutor's office, they don't want to dismiss it, but they want it to go away in some manner. Mm-hmm. Now, like I said, if it's tried, the judge will be the jury.
Yeah.
So depending on how that judge feels about the case, they make the decision whether or not to find the brothers guilty of what now remains disorderly persons offenses. Mm-hmm. And the reason that is sticky is because they're not facing now I think the most that you can get on a disorderly persons is 6 months county jail. which of course Justin has already done. But what the nuance of it is that in cases such as this, where the defendants may have a possible civil suit.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. Mm-hmm.
A judgment by the court that they are guilty, even on a disorderly person's offense, may impact upon that civil rights, and the causes of actions that you could bring civilly.
Right. That's what that was the question. So you answered, the question. It seems like this is a tactic to have something in the books to where when a civil case does come about, as it should, I think personally that would happen. So thank you. I hope we can talk about this further on the other side of what happens. I just want to say a lot of people really felt this case. This case got a lot of legs and brought a lot of light to New Jersey correctional system that a lot of people in the country don't know about. Unfortunately, we have another case in Dirty Jersey that is.
And I want to say, before
issue.
we move on to the other case, I just want to say quickly that I thank journalists such as yourself for recognizing that these cases, although it's not sensationalized, although mainstream media does not pick it up, although nobody was maimed or murdered, that this is the type of case that addresses the indignities that Black folks face on a daily basis. These are the stories that will not be heard. However, clearly there's a whole family here of lives that were interrupted without good cause, without any legitimate reason. And I think a lot of us, even as a people, never mind white folks, we have been conditioned to accept these things as our normal part of life. And we should not accept these things. It's hard enough for us. And to think that you could walk out of your home one morning and just be snatched off the streets. I mean, think about Miss Rodwell and those 4 of her sons snatched off the street. Is reminiscent of slavery, to be honest. So I thank you for discussing this. It's very important to bring this information out to the people.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I thank you for acknowledging it. My coverage of these type of cases makes me not the most favored news outlet in New Jersey, but I'm not here to be liked. I'm here to bring the information to help people navigate situations such as the one or the family in which the family member which you are representing. And thank you for speaking to me, because a lot of lawyers or people would say, oh, well, ARC Republic is not a big not a big organization. I'm only going to get a few views. How is it really going to help my case? So I extend that gratitude as well to you, because you reached out to me and the activists who brought attention and light to the Rodwell and Spivey brothers case too. It is a collective effort.
Yes, I agree.
Mm-hmm. And I want to talk, and on the other side, how does a family with so much trauma, how do you move forward from that? I will be very interested in what that looks like. And I know we kind of briefly talked about the consent decree, and I wanted to know if there was any follow-up on that, because I know you reached out to the lawyer who was auditing Newark Police Department.
There's no follow. Let me tell you something. Okay. There's no follow-up from anyone. In this case, it started out with Mr. Africa bringing attention to POP, which is the People's Organization for Progress, mm-hmm. led by Mr. Ham, Larry Ham. He got involved with this, which we appreciate. He's a grassroots organization, or so I'm told. I'm not very, I'm not into, I say this all the time, I'm not really into all of, the activism and the politics of it all. So they did a lot to assist us in turn. I mean, even Mr. Ham organized a march to the jail when Justin was locked up, which was, to me, epic. There was no coverage of it. The people in the street saw it, which, sometimes I think that's the important audience for us. Mm-hmm. But nobody cared one way or the other. Also, the NAACP has gotten involved under the leadership of Rick Robinson, mm-hmm. and they have helped us as well. But in terms of, the bigger organizations, they have not, other than spreading, and this is the media, other than spreading the false narrative that the brothers just jumped on and beat up the police officers. A mob of people is what was reported. They reported that false narrative in almost every publication that you could think of in New Jersey. But now that the case has progressed and we see that there's got to be something the matter with this case, because why would it be dropped? Why would Justin just be released with no explanation whatsoever? Something's going on here. But those people who were responsible for pushing all of this, the false narrative that the police wanted to have pushed, were silent. They remain silent. They're not interested in this at all.
Yeah, and that usually is the case. The young folks say, bring that same energy, right? Bring that same energy when you were reporting, as you said, as you aptly stated, the false narrative. And I've seen this over and over again. When the truth comes out and the folly is on the, the status quo or the people with power, nothing is reported. It's like silently goes away.
And remand court is a go away court, to be perfectly honest. And it just boggles the mind to me. And I shouldn't be surprised, but each and every time I'm still a little like, this is so routine, that we have to have, our lives interrupted so viciously. And then you're just left to pick up the pieces. I mean, I don't know how Justin takes back that year and some change that he was locked up in a place where people were being murdered. COVID was running rampant. He missed major milestones with respect to his children. I think his daughter graduated from the 8th grade. He couldn't be there. I don't know how you recover from that. And the mother as well, who had to hold everybody down, while she went to work every day. So you don't really recover, and it's just, you're just damaged. So you end up surviving because that's what we do, but the damage remains, and nobody, not one person, not even an apology, nothing. Nobody skipped the beat. The officers are still working. The judges who made these wrong decisions are still sitting on the bench. The prosecutor's office still prosecuting. Nobody pays the price for this except for the brothers and their family.
Yeah, the victims. The victims. Yeah, that is an ongoing talk that we must have, and we must keep this in the fore, so people know that this is not. And I also, with mainstream media, we could go on and on, but also with mainstream media, it romanticizes things too as well. Like not bringing out the minute effects of what happens, all these small little things that you might consider small, but one, let me acknowledge this: Essex County Correctional Facilities is notorious. It has a horrible reputation for being a really messed up facility. So the emotional and perhaps psychological trauma that Justin went through, where's the care? Who's going to give him mental health issue? Who's going to, as you talked about, the harassment and the bullying and the intimidation that the family reported on, things like finding a job. You still have that stain on your record. When you are away for a year, how do you explain that to potential employers? There are so many things that you have got to reorient yourself in order to align yourself again to be back into society. Because even though he, quote unquote, did not do time for a crime, he did time nonetheless. We're going to continue to push that. And I think that's, well, one, I salute you, because these are very hard cases and they take a toll on everybody who is involved. But I thank you for the commitment and the passion, which brings us to the next case, is about Donta McMillian. How did you find out about this case, and what is it generally about? And we'll get into the nuts and bolts of it as we go.
Well, my client, Mr. McMillian, was incarcerated for an offense that he committed, a criminal offense back in 2016. And while he was there, he was savagely beaten by several police or corrections officers. Our complaint alleges that they put false charges against him, saying that he tried to attack one of the officers when that was not the case. In fact, my client alleges that the treatment of him, which is also on videotape. Both of these cases are on video, so that's the important thing, because we're not lying to you. It's on video, and that's the craziest part to me, because there's no need to explain any of this. I don't have to tell you what my client said and this, that, and the third, because it's already there. You could see it, and still the powers that be won't recognize it. And that's particularly in this case because he alleges, as I said, that this was a setup, and the video shows, even if you don't believe that part of what he's saying, we believe it. I believe it. But suppose that you don't want to believe that. The way that man was beaten on videotape, the purpose of the corrections officer is to make sure that they gain compliance for an inmate who was acting unruly. If you say that he was, which we deny emphatically, that was not an attempt to gain compliance. The man was beaten into a bloody pulp. He could not move based on the video after this beating was administered to him. And still, they don't. This guy happened in 2016. Now we're in 2022. We're still litigating this case. Now the complaint wasn't filed until 2018 or so, but from 2018 to the present, we have been litigating this case. And what you don't know is that first the Attorney General's office was handling this case. Somewhere along the way, they went out and hired private attorneys. So now there's three firms. Let me count. 1, 2, 3, 4 private firms. Let me back up. Before, there was the Attorney General's office handling the excessive force claim. We also have a failure to give medical treatment claim. So there was a firm handling that. Now the Attorney General's office decided that they wanted to hire private counsel. So they, in the midst of litigation, in fact, in the midst of depositions, I was taking depositions, and I can explain all that at another time, because it gets a little convoluted. But they stopped on their own without leave of court, canceled the depositions, and went out and hired law firms to defend this case. Now they still, the video shows exactly what happened to this man, and it's a violation of the 8th Amendment against cruel and unusual punishment. And instead of them just trying to resolve this case with Mr. McMillian, they double down and expend taxpayer money to go to these law firms who typically, and I'm not saying anything bad about law firms, but they bill. That's what the purpose is. They bill. So if you keep the case with the Attorney General's office, you have an employee attorney who's handling the case. When you send it out, you got law firms who are billing on an hourly basis. So they doubled down on it, and now we're in the position having to, deal with all these law firms, and a lot of them have triple names and things of that nature. There's no accountability. It's similar to the Rodwell Spivey case. These corrections officers decided that they had the right or the authority to beat this man like this, and there's no accountability. None of those officers were disciplined. Half of them, most of them still employed. Some of them were promoted. And they're fighting tooth and nail for something that's on the videotape for you to see.
My just, very superficial analysis of it is that there's another high profile case about New Jersey correction officers involving women.
The females.
Yes, the women's correction.
I just saw the video today. It's the same scenario.
Wow.
So when you think, and the thing about society, and I keep talking about media because I think that that's a reflection of society and how society views things. It took a long time for them, the system, to acknowledge what was happening to those women. Now, and it probably is because they had no choice.
Mm-hmm.
And when the video surfaced, it put them in a box because it's women, right? So if you think that stuff is happening to Black women, with predominantly, populating the prison system here, you don't think that stuff's happening to Black men? Mr. McMillian is not the first case. I can guarantee you that. But this is another example of how Black folks are expected to be treated like second-class citizens. It's, if you commit a crime, you got to do the time. You have to pay the price, the penalty that's mandated by statute. That doesn't mean that you are supposed to get your ass beat, or that doesn't mean that you're supposed to be raped,
or your teeth knocked out,
or your teeth knocked out, or just tortured. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean all of that,
right?
But society, which is probably exaggerated by the prison system, because there's really no eyes on what's happening in the penal system, and people are deemed criminal, so there's even less of a concern about those, their throwaways as well. So you get us in there, mostly Black folks. So now just another way of saying, hey, we can do whatever we want to you. It's the same. It's reminiscent of slavery all over again. How can I be serving 5 to 10 or 3 with a 5 or whatever I'm serving for whatever I did? How can I be subjected to such violence and inhumanity? That's because this society expects, and I'm not just saying white folks. We got some Black folks who expect this as well,
right? And participate in the brutalization, right, of the inmates.
Well, if you had I don't know if you have the video.
I have the video, and we're going to be playing this alongside the conversation. Yes.
Okay. Well, you see who is involved in that, right? So it's not just it's just not white folks. I need for my Black people to understand this, because it's bad enough that it happens because of race. But when you have Black folks who are in a position to do better and they don't, but join in the shenanigans, that makes it all the worse. Because where is your relief? There is no relief.
And maybe about several months ago, I spoke to a former Long Beach officer, and he was fired, and there was a lot of racism he experienced. But he said that in the Long Beach department, there was a Black guy that they called Blackout, because that's who the brass used, who were not Black, to fire the Black officers, so the claims of discrimination and racism could be thrown out when you were sued. So, there has to be a conversation about how people who look just like us are complicit and very well-oiled tools in the machine of racism, and actually carry it out better than white folk.
Yes.
So, I mean, that's what we're talking about, because there were Black correctional officers in the case with the women's correctional facility. But I want to stay on Donta McMillian. Can you kind of take us through some of the major points of this day leading up to his brutal beating by correctional officers?
Well, as our complaint alleges, there were about 2 days prior to the incident, there was an inmate who assaulted an officer, having nothing to do with my client. So what he tells me, and what I've heard from other people as well who've been in prison, is that when something like that happens, the officers will select somebody to as an example to the population that if any one of you do something like this, then this is what's going to happen to you. So he claims that he was a victim of that type of thought process. And they actually set him up to come out and have this, to be beaten. So what he says that he did when he came out, and he thought it odd that he was coming out at this time, because everybody was supposed to be on lock except for maybe a select couple of people. And so he came out, and they told him that they wanted him to get some water and a piece of paper or something like that. So he comes out, and he immediately sees two of the defendant officers in the air, like kind of like in a dugout, in a hallway, little dugout area. So they started to get aggressive with him, and he knew what was about to go down, and he jumped down the stairs and threw himself out into the hallway so that it could be captured on camera.
Wow.
Yes, and it was, and he had to. This story is very long. I know that the complaint that I filed in this case was it was very voluminous, I think, for a complaint. But he was beaten, and if you look at the video very carefully, you can see what he's talking about, because he immediately dives to the floor and kind of puts himself in a kind of
a fetal position
to protect himself. And they just beat him nonstop. The officers that came, it was immediately, not even like, what is going on? There's no immediate punches to the head, immediate punches to the body. And then after that, he's taken to this cell and pretty much left there to I would say for 3 months, if I'm remembering the documentation correctly.
And he didn't receive any medical care?
No. And this is his contention. It's all in the complaint. He did not receive any medical care. And I believe him. I believe him based on, what we've done thus far in this litigation. He was not sent out to be evaluated. He had complaints of serious injuries. Nobody so much as gave him a Tylenol. So, this story, like I said, this happened in 2016. And it's not an isolated story. There are other complaints filed in federal court right now with similar claims from inmates who've been treated like this.
In New Jersey.
In New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
In New Jersey. But you're never going to hear about it, because the powers that be, the society at large, think that these men deserve it. Or if they don't deserve it, they don't have a right to complain about it, mm-hmm. because they're second-class citizens and they're quote unquote criminals. And the thing about it is, I don't know if they treat white inmates like that. I have no idea. But the complaints that I've seen thus far involve Black inmates. So it's not an isolated incident, and it's all the same type of disregard for us as a people and the rights that are supposed to be afforded to us by the Constitution of the United States and the state of New Jersey.
Attorney Hardaway, when the complaint was filed in 2018, was McMillian still incarcerated?
Was the complaint? I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
He is incarcerated now on an unrelated matter. And that's another thing that I want to speak about, because sometimes we say in the legal field, we take our victims as we find them.
Mm.
And I consider Mr. McMillian to be a victim, not only of this particular situation, but the environment that made him to be what he is. So he has reoffended. He's serving time now in New York, but that does not take away from the fact that he didn't deserve to be beaten like that.
That's correct. Yeah, and I mean, I know this from, research, and even, just knowing people, family, friends, who, once you're in the system, I used to work with the probation office. Once you have a number and you're in the system, it is very hard to not be impacted, especially as a Black male.
I mean, once you're born into an environment, an impoverished neighborhood where you're surrounded by guns and violence and drugs, and sometimes parents who are not capable of or do not want to, look out for your well-being, and you're brought up in a system at a young age, you get caught up in a situation, and the juvenile system does not try to redeem you. It gives you a slap on the wrist only to prepare you for adult prison or the adult legal system, and you're not prepared because you've come through this juvenile system and not much has been done to you, to even help. You get I think the first time you get a juvenile offense, you get some type of program or somebody talks to you. And I'm not saying that they should be locked up, but there's no mechanism in place to see about these kids. Like, what's going on to make you do something this at 12 years old? What's going on with your, with your situation? They just pass through, and then everybody's surprised that you have an adult now who's, engaged in criminal activity.
Right. And you know what? I guess maybe because I work at a predominantly white institution, and I hear stories of what students do in college and before they got there, that if it were in another tax bracket or a lower tax bracket in a darker hue, it would be a totally different story. And they see it as just young and having fun and just being kind of stupid, and they're harmless and they really don't mean anything. But there's a whole different type of way that people on the other side of the tracks are treated. And I always want to acknowledge that, because I saw that time and time again. I mean, being in Los Angeles and working with the juvenile court systems, when you had a fight, you were given a probation officer and you were immediately, considered an offender. So I just want to acknowledge that. I don't know his case, but I want to know, so where are you? You said you're still litigating. Is there some type of court case? What's going on with it right now? Or they're still flip-flopping?
Well, right now we're pending a motion decision. I mean, we're in litigation. I mean, without getting into the nuances of it all, we're still in litigation. And nobody wants to try to resolve this case, from what I can understand. I mean, at this point, after as an attorney, really, after after you've been put through so much and you've had to fight so hard, it makes you not want to resolve the case either. It's just like, I went through all this. We could have talked it out and worked something out, but I have to go through all of this. So it makes you want to keep on. I mean, at least me, keep on fighting until the death of one of us.
And you know what? I had this conversation very quickly with a sister. We were talking about food, but the whole conversation was talking about the cost of racism and how this could have been settled. All the money they're putting in this, it could have been settled, right? And for people to waste money during a time where there's this economic strain is very interesting. I want to, this is a question not directed towards McMillian. This is towards your profession. Civil rights attorneys are dwindling. It might be considered on the outside sexy.
Let me talk about that, because I have something to say about that. So, and I keep going back to society seems to designate one Black civil rights lawyer for whatever
reason.
No, for whatever reason and for whatever period. It's going to be a Johnny Cochran, a Ben Crump, a whomever the hell, right? But it's a lot of us. And the problem that I have, I don't mind, go ahead and make your money, Mr. Crump. And quite frankly, when I hear him speak, I enjoy listening to what he's saying. I think he's knowledgeable and he knows what he's talking about. But the problem that I have,
Sorry, excuse me.
the problem that I have is that, you know, he's only one man, and he's not licensed to practice in every state in New Jersey, in the United States of America.
Right.
So to have, and I don't know how they find out what's, you know, the big thing that's about to happen next, so let me jump on board. I don't even know how all that works. But you know, Mr. Crump, when you come to New Jersey and you don't seek out Black attorneys, you know, who are civil rights, and not just because we're Black. It's some of us, and I'm not the only one. We've been fighting these cases for a while. They may not be, you know, as notorious as some of the cases that, you know, him and I guess Reverend Sharpton started that whole thing off. But we've been doing cases like the ones that I'm handling that are not easy. And because nobody knows about them, I'm just fighting against a wall, because the people who I'm fighting against don't think that they're going to be exposed, because I'm not, you know, a Ben Crump. I'm not a, you know, that one lawyer that everybody is running to fight their case. Now, and I'm not even saying this. I don't want your business, people out there. I'm not saying that. Please, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that there are a lot of us, and I know it, that are fighting these if they're capable. Because most of us, I think, tend to be criminal defense, because these
Okay.
civil cases are a little that, you know, you have to put money up front. They're a little bit more involved in terms of finances. You have to for the most part, you front all the bills, the expenses and everything, and then you hope you can get a recovery at the end. If you don't get a recovery, then you've just lost your money. So that's another thing that, you know, Black attorneys have to consider when they, you know, when they want to fight these cases. But I can't, I have no answer for that dynamic of the one lawyer, the one Black lawyer, as if nobody else is doing anything. And I hear people always say, well, where the lawyers at? Where the lawyers at? We're here. I've been doing this for a long time.
You know, thank you for correcting me. You know, I work with young folk, and when the young folk talk about, you know, they want to pursue law, for a long time, it was like, oh, I don't want to do civil rights law. They don't make no money. I want to do corporate law. I want to do this. I want to do that. So, you know, thank you for correcting me and bringing light. And FYI, New Jersey isn't the only state that Crump passes up on Black lawyers. He passes up on Black lawyers, I know for a fact, in Florida, in his home state. There is a huge, you know, there's a case going on with some environmental racism. And there was a white firm, from what I understand, that he hired. So, I mean, that's I'm glad you mentioned that, because as much as it might help that one family or those two families that Crump is representing, it seems as if what you're saying in terms of my analysis, it could be damaging for all of the hundreds of other cases that don't have any light. Am I correct?
And that's the point, because I think Mr. Africa, there was a case recently where Crump came down to New Jersey. I forget the case, but Mr. Africa actually said something, you know, about how this was, in his view, how these attorneys and the Al Sharptons and the Ben Crumps, they come down and they what did he say? They capitalize on people's pain. And I felt that because to me it seems more of and I don't even want to say, because like I said, when I listen to Ben Crump, I feel like he is a good lawyer and he wants to try to help. I do. But it's not enough to me to hog all of the darn, you know, spotlight. You
Correct.
have to, there's hundreds of cases, and not necessarily one that's, you know, being highlighted by the media, the mainstream media. There's so many cases that go under the radar that it's a little bit I don't want to say selfish, But if you're in a position to put light on more cases, then that's what you need to be doing. Why? And I'm not even saying, oh, you shouldn't go out and hire these white law firms. I really don't care what you do, but I'm noting that you're not looking for any of us in some situations.
Right. And it can appear to be the antithesis of the movement work that you say that you're doing. I mean, and that's been that has been a circling conversation that has been happening. Like, is this really about changing laws and movement work, or is this about payout or, hogging the platform? What really is the ultimate agenda? Even though I've heard his talks and what he says and what he does, but talk and action are not adding up. And
you could do more.
Right.
If you're blessed to be in a position like that, you should feel in my view, obligated to do more. You should check around to the state of New Jersey and see, what other cases are out there, on the docket. It's all public record. Who's handling these cases? Maybe they can benefit from some of your, notoriety, or, maybe not. But still, it's not all about you. And I think that I think society makes it that way. They allow that one lawyer, because if the floodgates opened, then it would be a problem. I think that people would not want to address. And the floodgate meaning that we continue to be treated like second-class citizens. And at some point, it starts to look like slavery by another name. It looks just like that. So, if you have that platform, and I don't like to talk negatively about, people or whatever they're doing. I don't know these people, but it seems to me, if just like when they say celebrities, if you have a platform, try to, broaden it out a little bit. Let's try to see if we can help more people instead of that one person. And more people, meaning not just Black folks who are, murdered. What about the ones like Justin Rodwell and his family? They deserve some justice. They deserve to have their story told. And that's just the bottom line.
I thank you all of the information you brought. That is some insight, and I think it's a good way to end in an ongoing discussion that I know we will have. It is always good to see you. Please keep us updated on both cases, and I look forward to what happens, and let the folk know that ARC Republic is here to serve and be a vehicle of justice. So thank you for coming on again, and I wish you all the best in your cases.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. I always love the opportunity, and I, of course, enjoy speaking with you each and every time.
Thank you, Attorney Hardaway. I can't even say your name. Thank you, Attorney Hardaway. 3 the hard way. Okay, thank you so very, 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 very much. I'll be talking to you soon.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to ARC Republic. If you like what you see and you like what you hear, you can actually keep this mothership going. How? You can make a tax-deductible donation in several ways. 1, Cash App us at ARC Republic Media. And you can also go on our website, arcrepublic.com/donate. As well, you can also donate to our fiscal sponsor and our sister organization at Black Farmers Index, that is Cash App, or also go onto their website, blackfarmersindex.com. We are 2 Black women-owned media organizations who share our profits so folk can thrive.